Hi and welcome to Authentic Achievements, and today I've got the absolute privilege of chatting with the fabulous Michael Tobin, who I've had the privilege of talking to once before and learning a bit of your journey. So thank you so much for agreeing to put up with me twice
No,
and
pleasure.
coming on to
See you again, Kim.
share with us your journey.
Good to see you again.
And you, my lovely. So what I'd really love to do is be able to share a little bit about your journey so far and the things that you're most proud of. So I'm going to hand it over to you because you've got such a fascinating story.
Well, I guess being sort of from the East End of London, there wasn't much expectation anywhere at the beginning, other than survival, I suppose. But it was quite a rough environment back then, and yeah, my father was in and out of prison and quite a violent individual. And so it really was about survival. Sort of, the gang that he was in was not an aspirational place for me to want to end up. Thankfully, my mother kind of escaped with me to Africa when I was about 7, so kind of run away from him when she had an opportunity. But that was moving into what was then called Rhodesia, now called Zimbabwe, but it was right in the middle of a civil war. So from the East End to a civil war, getting petrol bombed and shot at was suboptimal out there as well.
That's a little bit of frying pan and fire, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So and then by the time I got back managed to escape there when I was 12 and back into the UK, but they took everything from us as we left the country. So literally we landed back almost like a refugee back into the UK, with no money, no basis of support, and we lived in a squat in Stockwell for a couple of years, making money, breaking into condemned houses, waiting for demolition, and seeing what you could find. And very often in those days, as people moved out, the one thing that all the old homes had, but were kind of trending out, was an old piano. And so we'd find these pianos and tune them up and sell them on East Street Market for 20 quid a piece, and we'd roll them down the road, so that's how we survived for a couple of years. It was just kind of doing that until I got an apprenticeship at the age of 16, and moved into a business called Rockwell Automation, which was it made robotics, which, again, there was no kind of design in life at all about that, but it was a job, and I was earning, I think my first pay packet was about £34 a week. But it was, but that was the start. And I always wanted to kind of make money, but the concept of an apprenticeship I didn't even know what value that would or wouldn't be to me at the time. It was just something that got me into earning.
Yeah.
And so when I finished my apprenticeship, I was applying for jobs, that I knew on paper I had no ability to do. Like the first one was technical manager for a computer company in London, and if you do enough, you end up getting a bit of luck. And I went down there and I said, yeah, great, let's do it. And I thought, well, how hard can it be, And so within a short period of time, you either learn or sink. And fortunately, most things unless you're a brain surgeon or something like that, you can learn to do pretty much anything very quickly. And so started working there, and then eventually, one thing led to another, and I was, before you knew it, I was doing deals in Europe and traveling around. So yeah, and then I managed to get back to, after sort of a few years in Copenhagen, a few years in Frankfurt, many years in France, 11 years in France, setting up businesses around Europe. Ended up back in 2002, back into the UK. Found this business that was bankrupt virtually. It was listed, but it was burning cash at an alarming rate. It was a penny stock. People believed it was going to go bust. Managed to turn that around, and in 2015 it was sold for 3.6 billion. So a good 13-year journey, but it was like where I learned everything about sort of leadership and what not to do and what to do, and how to engage with people and how to inspire them. But it was a good financially sort of good thing to do as well. And then since then, I've been doing investments, non-exec stuff, and lots of fun things like that.
I love it. I mean, what an amazing journey. And where do you even dig into that? Because I mean, so many things that could have been the thing that made you go, oh, it's just not for me. So clearly I'm never going to get anywhere. But I love the fact that your kind of motto is, well, how hard can it be? So I'll give it a try. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, fear is a completely irrational concept, really, if you think about it. And you know, we never fear the past because it's happened.
Yeah.
We tend not to fear the present because you're in it and you're dealing with it. So we fear the future. Now, we invariably apply all the negatives we possibly can think of to the future because that's the kind of default position. And it's invariably never as bad as we've kind of built it up to be in our minds. And you know, if you think about it, if there's something you can do to augment or improve the future or to de-risk it, then you should do it.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing, then what are you fearing? What are you worried about anyway, right? And it's like worry and fear about the future is like paying interest on a debt you haven't even drawn down on. So it's kind of yeah, it's just get on and do stuff. And if it doesn't work out, then get on and do something else, right?
Yeah, because I think, you know, one thing life taught me is everything in life is either a lesson, a blessing, or both. And even if at the time it doesn't feel like much of a blessing, look for the lesson, because if it's not a blessing, it will be the lesson. So, and you learn, don't you?
It's absolutely true. And so at home with the kids, there was kind of a thing I tried to install in them that, first of all, we try not to use the word mistake or a failure. Those things kind of don't exist. And there's either, you know, you succeed or you learn.
Yes.
And so in all cases, there's not failure. The fear thing is so important though, because, you know, I remember when I had this business I mentioned to you, data center business, Taylor City. And when I told them that I was going to merge two businesses that had been competitors for years, obviously in their minds, the first thing they were thinking about is, oh, you know, that, you know, consolidation means, you know, what's going to happen to my job? You know, am I safe? And oh, what's the future? All this irrational fear. And so I took them up to Scotland for a board meeting. And we took a trip up there, but they thought they were going for a whiskey tasting beforehand. But I don't know if you've been there, but as you go over the old Firth of Forth bridge and do a U-turn coming back and going north, you do U-turn, and there's a massive aquarium in the Firth.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's in open water. It's that big. It's huge. And so we stopped there, and they went, "What's going on? You know, why we stopped?" And
where's my whiskey?
I brought them in. Yeah, I brought them in and said, 2 by 2, okay, get into your wetsuits, get the breathing apparatus on. And they're going, what's going on? And so they did it blindly. And then I told them 2 by 2, get into the tank. And it was huge. It was literally like you were in open water. And then, of course, as they were putting their legs over and doing as they were told, you could see the shark fins circling around in front of them. And they suddenly realized that this is not going to be the thing that they thought it was. And I was called all sorts of names, and, you know, where's HR at the time we needed that sort of thing. But they all went in, and we swam with these sharks with no nets, no cages. And they were literally huge, like 4-meter sharks, huge things coming right up to your face. And then when everyone came out again, it was like, okay, so what were you thinking and feeling when you realized what you're about to do? And it's like, I was terrified. Oh my God, I hated you. You know, like, what on earth was going on? And I said, well, how did you feel when you were actually on the seabed with these sharks around you, and you were beginning to realize that they weren't going to eat you? They said, well, I was still terrified, but it was actually quite exciting. It was kind of, you know, I was really, oh my God, I'm actually doing this. And I said, how did you feel when you got out? And they said, well, once in a life changer. I don't want to do it again, but once in a lifetime experience, amazing, something I can tell my grandkids. And so I said, well, if you apply those states of mind to any particular dynamic that you have in life, if you like, that effectively starts with fear of a future event, right? Then imagine, you know, first of all, that kind of irrational fear because you got out and you weren't eating, right? So it
Yeah,
was rational by default. The excitement that you will feel going through something that is obviously out of your natural comfort zone. Therefore, it's a massive learning curve from your own perspective of yourself.
yeah,
But also it's an exciting journey. And then, when you came out of it, you realized that actually it wasn't as bad as you originally perceived, but you felt enriched
yeah,
by having gone through that process. So it's something I write about in my first book. It's kind of this irrationality of fear, and how by going through these things you become a bigger person in your
yeah.
own eyes, right? Not in other people's eyes, in your own eyes, you become a bigger person. So you're surmounting your own kind of fear.
I love it. But that's how we grow, isn't it? Because if not, we hold ourselves back, don't we? All those times where we think, oh, I can't do that. Couldn't possibly, because what's the worst that can happen? And I must admit, I live my life that way with you. What's the worst that can happen, and can I live with it? And as long as the answer is yes, it's like, well, I'll give it a go then.
Yeah, I mean, so getting an answer. Very often, people are shy to ask for something, right? And getting no as an answer is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah,
Getting yes is great, but no is a perfectly reasonable answer, and it should be followed by, okay, absolutely fine. Why? And
yeah,
then you start to learn around, the whole sort of, can I do this or can I have that? No. Okay. Why? Well, because X, Y, Z. Ah, right. Okay. I'll come back tomorrow having resolved X, Y, Z.
yeah,
Ask you again. So it's sort of, you've got to have the nose. I always find, I tell the kids, most sports that, I like to think of myself as competitive, but in most sports, it's the fastest, it's the one that can lift the most. But there's interesting, I always look at sort of high jump and pole vault as the one sport where it always ends in failure,
yes,
because only, because you can win a race, you can win 100 meters, but you could feel disappointed by not getting your personal best or something else and still be victorious. But you find that the high jump champion always ends because he's failed the last
yeah,
jump, right? And even when he knows he's beaten everyone else, they keep going because they want to see how high they're going, right?
yeah,
And it's only at that moment do you really see your ultimate position and be happy with that as your ultimate position. And so failure has an important role to play in success, right?
yeah.
So we shouldn't be scared of failure. We shouldn't be scared of a no, because it kind of frames the yes, if that
I
makes
think
sense.
it's changing how we label it, isn't it? Because how we define the label is how we live it. So if we see it as an opportunity to become even better,
Yeah.
then actually you're not so disappointed with the no, because you're like, okay, well, I'm a step closer. I'm going to have learned something that gets me. It's a little bit like you go for a job interview, and I've always said to people, there's no downside to a job interview, and they clearly think I'm crazy. But there's only two possible outcomes. Either you're going to get the job, in which case brilliant, or you're going to get really, really good feedback about what you need to do to get the job next time. Either way, you're one step closer.
Oh, and
But
by
it's
the way,
how you change it, isn't it?
and also interviews are not, they should be bi-directional. So you may find in an interview you don't want it anymore, right? So there's all sorts of things that are helpful. But I mean, your point there about the step. I mean, when I was back in my early days, and I was lucky enough to be taught how to sell effectively by a brilliant guy, who was Bryan Adams's cousin, the Bryan Adams singer.
Okay.
But that's another story. But one of the things he said is, imagine you're a broom salesman, right? And you come to a street with terraced houses, right? 100 terraced houses in front of you, and you're a broom salesman, and your broom's good, right? And you work for this company. It's been 100 years. This company's been selling brooms. So you've got 100 years of data. And so you say, statistically, I know that out of these 100 houses in front of me, 98 of them are going to have a broom already, so they won't need one. One of them is not going to have a broom but can't afford yours, right? And one of them is not going to have a broom and can afford yours, is going to buy it, right? So wherever you start knocking on doors in that street, right? The likelihood is you're going to knock, knock, knock. Hi, hey, no, thanks. I got one, come.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a demoralizing dynamic. That's a yes, because I'm one step closer to my yes, right? So the quicker you can get rid of those no's, the quicker you're going to get a sale.
I love that. I heard somebody once called it monetizing the no. So they would work out how many no's they had to get the yes, and therefore they added a monetary value to it, so that every time they got a no, they were like, yes, I've just it's just changing it.
You know, most people in business have a pipeline, a funnel, right? They call it of prospects.
Yeah.
Now, all of those prospects are in a funnel, but then they get whittled down into, you know, likely, and then you close. And the number of closes versus the number of people you have in your funnel is a proportion. It could be 100 to 1, it could be 1,000 to 1, whatever it is. And you can then, by definition, say, well, if that sale is £1,000, then I can attribute £1 to each of those people that have just said no to me. And so there's always a way to actually turn what is initially perceived or could commonly be perceived as a negative into a real value to you.
Yeah, I love that, because it changes how we view it, doesn't it, and how we feel about it, and as a result how we feel about ourselves, because I think that's our big challenge, isn't it? We're often our own worst critic, and if we can find better ways of labeling things so that they serve us rather than hold us back, then that's when we can, I guess, go and do things that we never would have dreamt of. I mean, you've done some amazing things. What's the thing that terrified you the most, but you're now the most proud of?
Well, I don't know whether the thing that terrified me the most is the thing I'm most proud of. I would say, you know, the fact that I have 3 amazing kids that are completely sane and normal and do nice things and say thank you for things and say please, you know, and I'm proud of putting into a, you know, sort of any group of people that they can hold their own in conversations and are that confident in their ability to sort of engage. And that, it sounds very soft, but that's an amazing achievement, you know, and I'm very proud of that.
That is an amazing achievement. It's being a mum myself.
Right.
Whenever anybody, you know, sees your little girl and goes, isn't she polite, or isn't she kind? You kind of go, oh, maybe I'm doing all right here. Maybe exactly. maybe I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, because my role is to help her be the best little human that she can be. And you don't feel pride like in any level in the same way as you do for your children, do you?
Yeah, and look, I've done lots of fantastic transactions. We've been very, very lucky in business, you know, getting in at the right time, getting out at the right time. It's my hard work, but, you know, but nothing compared to, you know, seeing the kids engage in a room full of people, and those people sitting there actively and avidly listening to somebody's opinion, and that human being that was, you know, crapping on a table, you know, years ago, and then you're wiping out, you know, and now then here they are as an individual that in their own right, and a great one at that. So that's what I would say is kind of pride. You know, fear, again, you know, no one can completely eradicate the concept of fear, but it's something you have to constantly work at to be in control of, right? And you know, when I did my South Pole trek, you know, that was 3 weeks in minus 50, 60 degrees temperature, no way to be saved in any particular, you know, impossible to be saved. Your colleagues, there was 9 of us, you know, all of us had frostbite. One of them collapsed with hypothermia. One of them's tooth exploded in their mouth because it had the tooth froze inside. And so all these different things were happening, but you knew that you had to work together to get out of this. And there was no, you know, the worst case scenario was you couldn't carry on. You would have to be strapped to a sledge and be pulled by one of your colleagues for the next week or 2 weeks, and the hope that you might survive. So there was no, you know, it was really scary, right? Yeah. And one of these sort of things like, you know, the sort of the Churchillian comment of when you're going through hell, the worst thing you want to do is stop, right? Is when you're going through hell, keep going. You'll get out of it again, right? So it's sort of during that time, I felt really, I mean, there was no, you were never remotely warm, right? It was, you couldn't feel the ends of your extremities of your body, and you was trying to sleep at night because you were exhausted of dragging 150 kilos behind you for 12 hours, and like shivering like this, and that was as best as it was going to get, you know. And
that was the thing you looked forward to.
You look forward to, and you have to kind of put yourself in the, at some point, I'm going to be looking back at this. It will be over, right? And it's quite interesting because I started a charity thing years ago, which was the CEO Sleep Out, where I got a lot of CEOs to pay £10,000 each for the privilege of sleeping on the streets. And we used to do that outside St. Paul's in London. And a lot of them would say afterwards, you know, oh, this is amazing. What an experience to, you know, because you don't sleep, you know, there's rats, there's foxes the size, the dogs coming or sniffing around, and you don't think about these in St. Paul's. You know, there's real homeless people, you know, trying to steal your shoes, and you know, and the dustbins come around at 4 a.m. and wake you up, and so all these things that, you know, you just don't realize. The dew, even on a dry night, the dew everywhere makes everything soaking. That's start your day. And one of the CEOs said to me, it's amazing. Thank you so much for allowing me to have this experience. I now understand, you know, what homeless people are going through. And I said, well, you kind of do, but also you don't, because you knew at 6 a.m. it was over.
Yeah.
Right. A homeless person doesn't know that, you know, he assumes that, or she assumes that tomorrow is exactly the same as today, and there isn't an end, right? And that hopelessness of the dynamic is a bigger challenge to overcome than the actual physical challenge of sleeping out in the street in all those negative. So whilst the South Pole was unbelievably painful, very difficult, I knew that there was going to be an end to it. And that's what drives you through things. So I guess in any situation, try to identify the kind of the next thing or the day after the end, and focus on that, right?
Yeah, finding the thing to be hopeful of, isn't it? Because the only thing greater than fear is hope.
Yes.
And that's probably the bit that differs, isn't it? When people have still got hope that it can be better, hope that it will come to an end, hope that, you know, it's only 3 weeks and you will get home.
But yeah, obviously hope, right? But then what in your power can you do to make that hope more of a reality?
Yes.
Right. So if there's nothing you can do, then you know, don't worry or don't have fear to whatever extent possible. But if there is a tiniest thing that can augment the possibility of that hope becoming reality, then you should get on and do it.
Yeah. Well, it takes your focus, doesn't it? I remember somebody saying to me once, whatever happens to you, you're always so positive, we don't understand. And I was like, there's so many things that I can't change.
Yeah.
And so maybe I'm just not very bright. I said, well, if I can't change it, I choose to ignore it because I can't change it. And I focus on what I can change. What can I do? And I put all my attention there because it keeps me occupied. It allows me to move into a better place. I said, you never know. Every step you take changes your vantage point, doesn't it? So something you can't see now, you might come into view. So as long as we just keep moving, no matter how big that step is or how small it is, if we keep moving, then we keep ourselves open to the opportunity that something's going to change for the better. But
I mean, when you go, I whizzed over my story very quickly there, but you know, how much of that do you think I planned? Right? Like, there was nothing planned in any of my story. So, you know, it's all about taking opportunities and seeing and excuse me, seeing the advantages of any situation. I think that if you know, people say, oh, that was luck. And you know, I certainly attribute a lot of my success to fortune. And I think that fortune seems to be more regularly occurring to people that are open to the possibility of things going well,
Yes.
than it is to people that are closed to those possibilities, right? So if you have a negative view of life and you sort of, oh, well, I can't do that, or that's never going to happen, or I'm never going to, probably it won't, right? So,
It's so true. I mean, they say fortune favors the brave, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because actually, you've got to be brave and do the thing you don't think you can do,
Yeah.
to take advantage of the opportunity. And I think, we often look at those things around people. People are lucky, but actually, it didn't happen on its own. You've had an amazing journey, but it wouldn't have happened if you'd not put the hard work in. If you'd not applied for the jobs you couldn't do and gone, hey, me, I'll give it a try.
Exactly.
Because these things don't happen. But if you do put yourself out there, if you do go, do you know what, I'm going to give it my best shot, and what's the worst that can happen? If I'm either going to do it, and that's brilliant, or I'm going to learn what I need to do it next time.
Correct.
All of that is about how we develop and how we grow, isn't it?
And I guess one super interesting thing that I've learned is try to say yes as much as you can, right? Rather than kind of so I try to tell people everything before the word "but" is bullshit. Forgive me. I really love that, but no, you don't love it. Actually, the next bit is the important thing you're about to say, right? So what I try to do is kind of think about positives or think about constructive criticisms, and don't fluff around those. But then secondly, and don't butt around. And the second thing is that the try to come at every scenario or every question with a kind of a yes mentality, right? So saying, okay, before I kind of immediately dismiss that as either something I don't want, don't like, can't do. So what would I need? Oh, that's interesting. What would I need to be able to move this forward, right, in a positive way? So try and say yes to everything. And yes engages conversations, whereas no stops conversations. And when you engage conversations, you find opportunities.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how many, cocktail events and dinners and things that I don't really want to go to, and I go to, and my wife always says, again, I say, oh, I'm sorry, man. And you go to them, right? Nothing happens. And years later, someone said, I met you at this, and I've got this idea. Do you want to, and literally out of a conversation years ago that I could have chosen not to bother with, something happens. And then people go, oh, that's lucky. Well, it is. But it's also because I went to an event that I didn't really want to go to, and I had conversations that I could have easily stayed at home and watched EastEnders instead of, and all those things. And yet that's when things happen. It's because of conversations. And whilst, you say, well, okay, it may be a long return profile of 5 years, but actually if you're doing them all the time, right, every day, then after 5 years, they're happening every day.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
that's it. You're building, aren't you? And also one of my greatest joys in life is getting to hear other people's stories, hear their journey, because I learn so much. So it's really selfish because I learn, and therefore hopefully I can have similar success because you learn it. But one of the beauties is you never know where those relationships are going to end up. I love the fact that one of my best friends has been my best friend since I was 4, and really we shouldn't still be friends anymore. The poor girl would have got less for murder. And one of my other good friends has been 25 years, and you just never know where one chance conversation, one turning up to an event that you didn't want to go to, or putting yourself out of your comfort zone and saying, what if I just listen? What if I just really, really present and let them share their story? One thing I'm definitely going to do is learn something, but 2, I might be able to help them, or they might be able to help me. But I think we just need to be open to connecting, don't we, and being present.
Absolutely. Conversations lead to opportunities, and the more conversations you can have with a more diverse community. So obviously having conversations with one person, you'll extinguish, it's subject to any new news at any given time, you'll extinguish all of the opportunity. So you need to have conversations with lots and lots of people and from diverse environments, right? And when you have those conversations, you find new opportunities. You find, oh, so and so. Then, I mean, we're having an anniversary party in March, a 10-year wedding anniversary, and we went to a charity function. There was a famous celebrity singer, which I won't name because I'm setting it up as a surprise for my wife. So chance conversation, because we're a big donor of the charity. They then said, "Oh, I'll put you in touch with this guy that in the US who's the manager. He's based in LA, but he's actually an English guy." And I had a conversation with him and engaging with him. And in the end, we could never afford this artist, but he actually did us an incredible deal. And it turns out that his business has got the same address in London as my business has got, and all these sorts of things.
Oh, wow.
Endear you, and then suddenly something that couldn't be possible financially is suddenly possible because of conversations and things like this. And so, you know, without any element of those conversations going on, and without the fact that we're engaged with the charity, and then it wouldn't be happening. But because of all those conversations, because people like people, because, you know, suddenly all things are possible.
I love that. I love that. And congratulations on your anniversary. I'm sure you're going to have an amazing day. I could literally chat to you all day. Always so insightful. Thank you so very much. I might have to get you back on because there's still so many questions I would love to ask you, because you add such value. But the bit that I've really loved is to think about yes. So how can I make this a yes? What would I need to do to make this happen? Is such a great approach to life. So definitely going to be trying more of that.
Well, I you know, when I interview people for roles, I very rarely look at their academic dynamics, right? And I'm looking for an attitude. And I think if we can change our attitude, things happen differently to us.
That is so true. I've always said that I would much rather recruit for willingness and teach skill than recruit for skill and teach willingness, because you can't. It's just never going to be there. But actually, if you get the right mindset, then actually it's amazing what you can do. I mean, I've only got an MVQ in hairdressing, and yet I still made it onto the boards of the big banks, despite really not needing to be there. But it was because, similarly in everything, it was like, well, how hard can it be? I'll give it a go. Yeah, and I'll learn. I'll do my best. But it's all about people, isn't it? Everything we do in life is about people, and that so comes through your story. You know, I deal with clients all the time who are like, oh, well, I've got so many challenges. I've got suppliers, they're people. I've got the team, they're people. I've got clients, they're people. So wherever we come to, it all comes down to, I'm a person, they're a person. How do we connect? And then how do we find a way to move forward together?
So the interesting thing in my second book, Live, Love, Work, Prosper, it's all about how work-life balance doesn't exist and how you have to integrate them for it really to work. Otherwise you'll compromise one or the other. But the thing there is, look at your stakeholders, right? So your customers, your suppliers, your employees, but also put yourself as a stakeholder and put your family as a stakeholder, because they're invested in you doing your thing so that it all works for them. And so when you think about all these stakeholders, they all have needs and rights, and you need to engage with them in an empathetic way in all cases, to try to sort of move their needs forward, and then people really appreciate empathy in life. Yeah,
they do, because I think at our base we want to be listened to, we want to be understood, and we want to be respected. And if we can give that to somebody, then actually they grow as well, because they're able to feel valued. It's been an absolute joy. I am going to stop the recording now, but I would love to be able to interview you again.
Absolutely. In the future. Pleasure. The yes, you got a yes.